It's May 9th. Who's on top of the American League and National League Rookie of the Year races? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, freelance baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen. Every single day, we're proudly part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And today's episode is pretty much brought to you by FanDuel, because we're talking about the National League and American League Rookie of the Year races, and this is obviously where we get all of these odds. These odds and stats are effective as of 5 p.m. Eastern on Monday, the 8th. So your leader in the Rookie of the Year race in the National League is not somebody who went in our Rookie of the Year draft that we had on the show a couple weeks ago, or for a lot of people, wasn't their number one on the board. If they tell you it was either his mama or their lion. But James Outman of the Los Angeles Dodgers, plus 170 on FanDuel as of Monday evening. And so the thing with James Outman, 2018 seventh rounder out of Sacramento State, is played in 35 games this year. 274, 340, 581, 8 home runs, 17 extra base hits, 15 walks to 44 strikeouts, and 4 of 5 on stolen bases. He's not doing anything different from who he is and who we know him to be, right? Like, that's the thing about James Outman. He's just getting the best possible outcome for everything that he does. So, last year, 125 games between AA and AAA, 294, 393, 586, 31 home runs, 69 extra base hits, 70 walks to 152 strikeouts, 13 of 17 on stolen bases. It's a very similar stat line, right? Batting average in the high 200s. Your on base is kind of hovering right there around mid threes or so, and your slugging is in the 580s. The scouting report on James Outman going into this season, and you saw him last year at the big league level, you saw him for 4 games. He was up, I think it was 4th of July, and they needed somebody. They called him up. He did those 4 games and went back to AAA. So the scouting report is fantastic defender. Can play all 3 outfield spots. The arm is plus. The speed is plus. He's probably the best Dodgers outfield defender that they have in the system, and has play time every day because Cody Bellinger is gone, right? So he can man center field for you. But offensively, it was something where the power was seen as average to above average, but like we talk about on the show, your power tool is only as good as your hit tool, and there were questions about the quality of the hit tool for James Outman. He struggled to hit pitches inside. He had to kind of rework his swing to get his hands closer to his body, be able to use his natural athleticism to get turned on those balls and get them out. And so when you look at the underlying stats for what James Outman is doing, you can see that it very much does kind of fit the existing profile of who we thought he was, okay? His strikeout rate, 32.6%. It is 8th percentile in all of the majors. For context, average, and I'll keep referencing these throughout the show, the average strikeout rate in MLB per StatCast, 22.1%. Again, James Outman's at 32.6. Swing and miss, so the whiff, 38.7%. Average in MLB is 24.7, so he's 14% above that. It is good for 3rd percentile. So yes, he has very good outcomes right now. His slash line looks very good. The outcomes that he's gotten have been very good. But if you translate the process that's getting him there, his expected batting average instead of 274 is 240. His expected slugging instead of 581 is 455. So do I think that James Outman is a good baseball player? Yes, I do. Do I think that there's going to be some regression back to something closer to a slash line of 240, 340, 450? It feels like it's coming. Now, when that happens, that's the big question, because obviously it's not so much the adjustment that MLB makes to you, it's how you respond to that adjustment and how quickly you make that turn. So, curious to see what happens for James Outman, but as of right now, plus 170 on FanDuel, he is the favorite for National League Rookie of the Year. You still have Corbin Carroll in there, plus 200. We'll get to him later in the show. For the National League, the other guy who's significantly climbed up boards, Brett Baty, plus 700. His whole thing was just playtime. He just had to get up to have a chance to play every day. 286, 344, 446, 2 home runs, 5 extra base hits, 5 walks to 14 strikeouts. Brett Baty's exactly who we thought he was. The defense has been better. He grades out pretty well for outs above average on StatCast, although I do think a lot of that is still small sample size stuff. We need some more games for all of those numbers to kind of settle and become meaningful versus what they are now, where it's just small sample size and what is noise, we don't know. He has looked to the eye test. Now that I'm a professional, but to the eye test, he has looked like he's more comfortable playing third base. In the American League, 2 of the big climbers up the board, Josh Jung and Hunter Brown. So Hunter Brown started 6 games this year, 3-1 with a 2.60 ERA, 34 2/3 innings, 36 strikeouts, so 9.3 per 9, 15 walks, 3.9 per 9, no home runs allowed. He's doing it rather interestingly, a little bit of a deviation from what he used to do. He's throwing 1/3 fastballs, 1/3 sliders, 1/3 curveballs. They're all a couple percentage points of being dead on even. I want to say it's like 34% slider instead of 33 to be 1/3, but they're all remarkably close to one another. Fastball is averaging about 96 miles an hour. Statistically, it's the worst pitch of the 3. That's just because guys can hit fastballs. It's 258 batting average, 355 slugging against the fastball. The slider, 234, 277 for your batting average and your slugging. And the curveball, 171, 195. I'm not saying he should get to 50% curveball. That's a little too much. But I do remember when I'm looking at StatCast, it's the third of the 3. It was barely over 30%. And you could probably throw that a little bit more often and get a little bit better results. But in the meantime, you love what Hunter Brown's doing. And rightfully so, having that, I think it's number 3 spot on the Rookie of the Year board at plus 850, totally deserved. The other guy, Josh Jung, somebody of the Texas Rangers, third baseman, guy that, because he was hurt so much of last year, we expected to see him earlier in the year. And he was hurt, missed most of the season, got a little bit of time towards the end of the year, but we just expected more out of him because we thought he was going to be around. The hit tool is above average. The power is plus in his 31 games. 258, 308, 500. 8 home runs, 14 extra base hits, 8 walks to 42 strikeouts. 1 for 1 on stolen bases. And here's kind of some of the rub. The process stuff, some of the process stuff's a little bit iffy, but the outcomes are good, okay? The barrel, 75th percentile in barrel percentage at 12.2%. The MLB average, 6.8. 57th percentile in hard hit percentage at 41.5%, whereas MLB average is just under 35.9%. So all of that stuff's really well. When he makes contact, the contact is working, but your power tool is only as good as your hit tool. He's in the 10th percentile for strikeouts, 31.6%, where again, average is 22.1, and specifically, its sliders are what's getting him. 167 batting average, 367 slugging against sliders with a 36.7% swing and miss. So some work to do there. He also has pretty high swing and miss against curveballs, but the slugging's like 1,100. So it's something where he doesn't always he has issues with swing and miss there, but when he gets a curveball, he gets a curveball. So not as worried there. It ends up being your leaders. American League, Matsutaka Yoshida, plus 220, Josh Jung, plus 440, Hunter Brown, plus 850. In the National League, James Outman, plus 170, Corbin Carroll, plus 200. Again, he's coming up later. Brett Baty, plus 700. In just a minute, I want to talk about some of the guys who have fallen out or down in the Rookie of the Year odds, and let's talk about why that is. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. It's a safe, secure app. You get paid instantly, and they have great promotions every single day. They also, for some reason, send the baseball channel basketball copy during the playoffs. I understand it's the basketball playoffs, but we're baseball people here. So you can go out, look at the American League, National League Rookie of the Year odds, and then whatever else you want to do. They actually have some really interesting props in there. They call them player specials as far as the parlays. You can have Ronald Acuna Jr. for MVP and Spencer Strider for Cy Young. If you want to do that, you can do Corbin Carroll for Rookie of the Year and Zach Gallen for Cy Young together as a parlay. Just some, Aaron Judge for AL MVP and Anthony Volpe for AL Rookie of the Year. Really interesting kind of parlays you can do there. So, don't miss out on your chance to place a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay, let's talk about some of the guys who have fallen down in these rankings and why. And one of the preseason favorites for Rookie of the Year, I actually believe he was the favorite when the year started, was Orioles shortstop and third baseman Gunnar Henderson. We saw him come up briefly last year, looked really good. He's coming in, expected, he is the favorite to open the year, and so far, not great. 29 games on the season, swapping between shortstop and third base. Mostly third base, but some shortstop. 176, 342, 308. 3 home runs, 6 extra base hits, 22 walks to 35 strikeouts, and 1 for 2 on stolen bases. Again, this is something where when he makes the contact, it's good quality contact. 57th percentile in barrel percentage, so he's above average there. Hard hit percentage, 46th percentile, so he's right at the line of just below that average, which is 35.9%. But strikeouts, 12th percentile. Whiff, swing and miss, 6th percentile. And then what doesn't help is the defense has not been great. He's 2nd percentile on defense. Now, the arm is fantastic, 98th percentile on the arm. It's a cannon, right? But if you don't have the ball in the first place, it doesn't matter how hard you can throw it. -4 outs above average at third, -1 outs above average at short. And he's playing a lot more third than short. So I think the shortstop number would be significantly higher if he was playing more shortstop. Kind of reminds me of how Bobby Witt struggled at shortstop last year, except Bobby Witt was actually okay at third base, and Gunnar Henderson's not grading out well there either. When you look at, going back to the bat though, when you look at the bat and the reason the stat line looks as bad as it does and why he fell down the boards, against breaking pitches, his batting average, .074 with a .185 slugging. 46.9% whiff percentage. So almost every other breaking pitch, he's swinging and missing. Not great. Off speeds, 176 batting average, 235 slugging on those. 28.6% whiff, so a couple points higher than average. But the real story here is how much trouble he's having with the slider specifically, and then breaking pitches in general. So something you're going to have to see Gunnar Henderson work on. The hard part for him, well, there's good and there's bad about doing this with the Orioles. The bad is they have a million middle infield prospects. The good is they weren't necessarily expecting to win the division this year, so they have more patience and more runway for you to figure it out. But if you're going to be bad defensively and have a low batting average, you've got to hit for home runs when you do it. He's walking plenty. Again, 342 on base. He's walking 22 walks and 35 strikeouts in 29 games, but he's going to have to be making more consistent contact if he wants to stay up all year and not have to go down to work on some stuff. Anthony Volpe of the New York Yankees, another guy who was one of the favorites, has fallen down to plus 850. He's now 4th in the American League Rookie of the Year odds. And it's not as bad as Gunnar Henderson, but his defense is positive. He's playing shortstop, 73rd percentile, +1 outs above average. Now, the arm is 33rd percentile. We knew the arm wasn't great for Anthony Volpe. That's fine. But in his 35 games, 212, 316, 331, 3 home runs, 7 extra base hits, 18 walks to 39 strikeouts, perfect 11 of 11 on stolen bases. You love to see that. But the issue for Anthony Volpe is he's not making quality contact. Barrel rate, 36th percentile. Hard hit percentage, 52nd percentile. So he's just above average on hard hits, but the barrels, launch angle issue here. Obviously, the barrel is a combination of the exit velocity you impart to the ball and the launch angle that it gets. So he's hitting the ball hard, but it's suboptimal angles to get him higher slugging numbers. To go along with that, he's in the 12th percentile for strikeouts and the 6th percentile on swings and misses. 17th percentile on strikeouts, 24th percentile on swings and misses. I was looking at Gunnar Henderson's numbers. So for Anthony Volpe, 17th percentile strikeouts, 24th percentile swing and miss, and his issues are breaking pitches. Common thing we see among young players, but 182 batting average, 212 slugging against breaking pitches, 33.8% swing and miss. I'll remind you, Major League average this season, 24.7. So significantly above average there. And it's some of it I think is just weird small sample size stuff. Like, he's seen exactly 40 cutters this season. Doesn't have a hit against a cutter. He's seen exactly 43 curveballs this year. Doesn't have a hit against a curveball. He's seen 102 sliders with a batting average of 190. So I think some of it's just he hasn't really seen a lot of cutters and a lot of curveballs. And so the fact that those are so bad, he's not gotten a hit on those yet, is bringing some of the numbers down. I feel better about Anthony Volpe than I do about Gunnar Henderson as far as his chances of eventually getting back into the Rookie of the Year race simply because of what his issues appear to be and how realistic it is that he might be able to fix them. Although, I will say Gunnar Henderson probably has a longer leash than Anthony Volpe does because Anthony Volpe is the starting shortstop for the New York Yankees. It just feels like it's not a position where they're going to give you all season to figure it out on the fly. But again, traditional stats, a little bit better as far as his batting average is at least in the 200s. Two guys that were sent down to the minors, and so obviously Rookie of the Year odds have tanked on them. Jordan Walker, Oscar Colas. So Jordan Walker, the Cardinals, couple issues here. One was the defense. He was the 14th percentile, -2 outs above average. So we knew his defense needed some work. I thought it was going to be better than it was. I saw him in the Arizona Fall League playing center field, and he didn't look completely uncomfortable. I thought the defense would be better. Obviously, tons of guys that they have to play in the outfield out there in St. Louis. They need some work, and the whole team right now is struggling, so I kind of get that. But in his 20 games, 274, 321, 397, 2 home runs, 5 extra base hits, 3 walks to 20 strikeouts, 2 on stolen bases. Doesn't look on its face completely awful on the stat line, right? I mean, he's batting 274. How bad can it be? So 47th percentile on barrels, so below average. 74th percentile on hard hit rate. He is crushing the ball, but he's hitting it into the ground and getting grounders. He needs to bring up that launch angle. Strikeouts, 33rd percentile, above average there. You'll remember MLB average is 22.1%. And then 21st percentile in swing and miss. And a big part of this, I think, for Jordan Walker, he does not have a single hit on an off-speed pitch this season. No hits on changeups. So something he has to work on there. And then for Oscar Colas of the White Sox, some defensive struggles, 39th percentile in outs above average. His arm, just like Jordan Walker's, was good, but not as good, 79th percentile in arm strength. And then in his 25 games, 211, 265, 276, 1 home run, 3 extra base hits, 5 walks to 20 strikeouts, and 2 of 3 on stolen bases. The issue for Oscar Colas is inability to make quality contact. Hard hit rate, 16th percentile. Now, most of the time when he got that hard hit ball, it ended up being a barrel. 42nd percentile on barrel rate. So he's better at converting, like the launch angle's okay. He's better at converting hard hits into balls in the air. But 41st percentile in strikeouts, 37th percentile in swing and miss. And that comes back to specifically issues with sliders and curveballs. Oscar Colas against a slider, .063 batting average, 250 slugging, 42.3% swing and miss. And then curveballs, .077 batting average against curveballs, 34.6% whiff. So both those guys, different things they're working on in the minors. For Jordan Walker, a big part of that is working on the launch angle, working on the defense. For Colas, it's, again, working on the defense and working on more exposure to MLB quality breaking stuff. They just can't afford to do it at the major league level because they're trying to win games here. Although losing Eloy for, I think, 6 weeks for an appendectomy means you may have to bring Colas back sooner rather than later. In just a minute, there's another guy from the Rookie of the Year race who has kept his stats up pretty well and is probably should be the prohibitive favorite to win at the end of the year. And we'll get to that next right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. And we are back. Thank you for making Locked On MLB Prospects your first listen every single day. We're free and available, obviously, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you've been listening, one, to this show, if you're an everydayer, but then two, if you've been listening throughout this episode, the guy I've mentioned a few times, you know he's coming up, Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks, was your preseason favorite to win Rookie of the Year in the National League. Had a little bit of touch and go there as far as took him a long time to draw his first walk, but 32 games in, he is looking the part of a guy that would win Rookie of the Year, okay? 315, 383, 556 is the batting average is the slash line across his first 32 games. 5 home runs, 15 extra base hits, 10 walks to 27 strikeouts, 10 to 12 on stolen bases. The book on Corbin Carroll was the bat is above average, the power is above average to plus, and he somehow translated all of this into production. Strikeouts and walks are both right about league average. 47th percentile on strikeouts, 48th percentile on walks. So he's right there around the league average of 22.1% strikeouts and 8.4% walks. He's just below both of those figures. When it comes to quality of contact, 76th percentile in hard hit rate, 48.1%. Again, MLB's average is 35.9. And then barrel rate, 12.3% barrel rate, where the MLB average 6.8. So he's doubling that one up. So Corbin Carroll is making the most of his at-bats. He is walking just about as much as any other MLB player. He's striking out just about as much as any other MLB player. But when he makes contact, he's making quality contact. Gives him a chance to let his stretch his legs a little bit. He has a triple. He had 15 extra base hits in 32 games. So really close to that. We always talk about an extra base hit every other game. Really close to that number at the major league level. We talk about the 300, 400, 500 slash line. 315 batting average. He's got that. 383 on base. Couple walks away. 556 slugging. So he's got that part. Corbin Carroll, all of the process stats here look really good, and the slash line looks like it's legitimately reflective of how good he's doing without the small sample size noise, without a batting average on balls in play kind of thing. It looks like this is legitimate for Corbin Carroll. And then also, to go along with it, 87th percentile in outs above average. Now, he's been playing more left field than I thought he would be. He hasn't been playing center field every day. But, and I think part of that, we've had this conversation before, Corbin Carroll's arm isn't the greatest, 39th percentile so far this year, so below average on the arm. We talked about he'd be a center fielder or a left fielder, but defensively, he can handle center. He's one of the fastest players in the league as far as sprint speeds go, and percentile for that, 98th, 99th percentile in speed. And so Corbin Carroll's making it happen with his legs. He is making it happen with the bat, and it feels like he probably should legitimately be the favorite. He's right behind James Outman right now at plus 200, while Outman's at plus 170, and Brett Baty's at plus 700, and then there's a big jump to get to the rest of the guys, Cody Senga and Spencer Steer at plus 2,500, and Brandon Pfaadt at plus 3,000. It feels like Corbin Carroll's a little bit... It feels like James Outman's a little bit higher in the odds than he should be. His odds should be dropped down a little bit, and Carroll should be the favorite. But right now, you're also not really getting a value on Corbin Carroll for Rookie of the Year. So, interesting there. We're going to keep watching this. We'll obviously come back and look at more of this as the season goes on. Reminder, if you have questions for our Monday mailbag, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. You can email us, lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com, or drop your questions in the Locked On MLB Prospects Discord. Links in the episode description, links in the show notes. Until tomorrow's show, remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.